Good evening, everyone. This is the Licensing Subcommittee on Tuesday, the 17th of August at 7 p.m. As per the order of the agenda, the first item is to elect a chair. Could I have nominations for the chair, please?
I nominate Councillor Root.
Thank you very much. If there are no other nominations, Councillor Root, you are in the chair.
Thank you very much. At this point then, perhaps I can introduce the members of the subcommittee. So we have Councillor Sophie Conway, and we also have Councillor Bajana Thomas. And we have another councillor with us this evening who is sitting in as an observer, who's Councillor Anya Sizer. I would just say to everybody that since we're doing this remotely and I'm on a kind of split screen so that I can see the documents and see everybody in the meeting, I can't see everybody all the time. So when the relevant people want to speak, if you could use the raise hand facility at the bottom of the screen so that I can see who wants to speak, that would be really helpful for me, because I won't necessarily be able to see people. We have 3 temporary event notices this evening to look at. They're in a particular order on the agenda. Sorry, Mr. Hart, what did you want to say?
Yes, if you, sorry to interrupt you, Chair, would you wish me to just quickly run through the protocol for the meeting and then we'll proceed? Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So as the Chair has already indicated, where a person wishes to speak, can they please use the hand signal at the lowest point of the screen, and please only speak when invited to by the Chair. Would you please make sure that your mic is muted during the proceedings unless you are speaking, but the Chair's mic will remain on all of the time during the proceedings. When speaking, please, as the Chair has indicated, speak clearly and succinctly. Please do not exceed the allocated time allowed when speaking on your item. Also, if you're referring to the agenda item, please be specific in where you're actually referring to, if it's an appendix or if it's a part of the report or if it's Appendix B or C. If you're having any technical difficulties, please can you use the little chat bar, which is like the little screen in the right-hand corner, and our IT expert Mario will try to assist wherever possible. But please do not use the chat bar for any other reason, as it is a public view and people can actually see who are actually watching the live stream. Any persistent disruptive behaviour, the person concerned will be removed and will not be allowed to return to the meeting. As there is one or more applications this evening on the agenda, what will happen is that the committee will consider each application in turn, but it will not deliberate on any of those applications until the last application has been completed. At that point, we will ask those who are present to please leave the proceedings and the live stream will cease, and the committee will then make its deliberations on each of the applications. That's all for now, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think I'm right in saying, Clifford, that the applicants and the premises users can expect to have the full answers tomorrow. We'll be pretty prompt, won't we?
Yes, Chair. It is the intention of the legal officer to ensure that the decisions of this evening are drafted as soon as possible. And if the applicants contact the licensing service in the morning, they will verbally be advised, and a written confirmation will hopefully go out tomorrow at some point, or Thursday at the latest. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, in that case, does anyone have any questions before we go any further? or shall we proceed? And if we do, I would suggest that we take it in the order in which the agenda has set things out, which means that we will kick off with the Balance Road temporary event notice. Amanda, what did you want to say? You're on mute at the moment.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to double check. Have you gone through apologies and declarations, etc., from the list on the agenda? I just wanted to double check in case I've maybe misunderstood anything. If you could just double check. Thank you so much.
I was just about to advise the chair.
Thank you very much indeed. No, we haven't done that, and we should have done that. It's partly because I'm working from two pieces of paper and I can only have one up on screen at the same time. So I apologise for that. So I think we don't have any apologies at all, do we?
We do not, Chair. No.
I wonder if I could ask if anybody has any declarations of interest who are on the committee this evening.
No, Chair, I haven't got any declaration. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. In that case, perhaps we can then outline just briefly what the subcommittee procedure is going to be, which we've talked about the protocols, particularly since we're working online at the moment. What will happen with each case, we'll hear all three cases separately, and in each case, the licensing officer will begin by outlining the report. Then we will hear from the responsible authority. Then we will hear from the premises user. We'll follow then with a discussion, and everyone then afterwards will have the opportunity for their closing remarks. And then once we've heard all three of the cases, we will make some decisions. So let's kick off with the first one then, which, as I say, is the one in Balance Road. And if I could ask the licensing officer, please, if you'd be good enough to outline the case, please.
Thank you, Chair. Temporary notice was given to the licensing service in respect of 6 Balance Road for an event to be held on 29th of August from 12 to 2300. We have received objection from the police and environmental protection. We have not received any other additional information. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. In that case, if I could ask, first of all, PC Neil Hunwick, who is from the police and is speaking on behalf of the responsible authority there, to outline his thoughts on this particular case.
Chair, thank you. I would just like to start by saying that in the nearly 5 years that I've dealt with the temporary event notices on behalf of the police, that this is possibly only the second time we've had a private individual submit a temporary event notice for a private premises, namely a dwelling. The previous one was withdrawn following conversations, and we're left obviously to deal with this one, which was submitted for the 29th of August 2021. Having looked on Google Maps, the premises itself, I believe, is a ground floor masonette within a block. The temporary event notice has been submitted for a birthday party and proposes to retail alcohol at the premises. Now, my colleague, PC Giles, dealt with this in my absence, and I have to say that I concur with what she's written. An objection was put in both to licensing services, and also a copy, as is required, was sent to the applicant. The application is apparently for a birthday party in a venue, which is described as an end of terrace ground floor premises. We fear that this, as a residential property, we're unable to support such an event occurring. Firstly, we're unable to adequately risk assess the event on the little information provided on the application. And secondly, events in residential properties are more difficult to control or manage in order to ensure that the licensing objectives are being adhered to. We've asked the question, how is the applicant going to ensure all licensing objectives are adhered to? We've asked what risk assessment has been conducted by themselves. We've asked, will this event be advertised as a guest list? And what alcohol will be offered for sale? How will the applicant ensure uninvited members do not gain entry? We also have concerns that an event of this type will have a negative impact on the neighbourhood with potential noise complaints from neighbours, which I believe to Gertsch's expertise. The problem we've got is that we're not against somebody having a private party, people bringing their drinks, as happens normally throughout the country and always has done so. What we find somewhat strange is that on this particular party, the applicant is proposing to actually retail alcohol, which would suggest to us that they're going to be making a profit. And I think it's very unusual that most people would want to make a profit out of their own birthday party, which leads us to various suspicions as to what exactly is going to occur. If the premises is granted a temporary event notice, then the normal rules of a private party for your friends and family go out the window. And the questions that my colleague has asked with regards to the licensing objectives therefore does apply, because it is getting a license, albeit a temporary event notice. We also would expect that with us asking those questions of the premises user, that some approach would be made to our office to engage us in some sort of conversation as to how those questions are going to be answered. To my knowledge, no approach has been made. So at the moment, we are unable to support the application and our objections stand. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I wonder if we might hear also from the Environmental Protection Officer, please, Gertsch.
Hi there, thank you, Chair. A fairly simple objection from Environmental Protection, just echoing what Neil was just saying a few seconds ago. So Environmental Protection have concerns that noise from patrons or the people attending during this event could amount to a statutory noise nuisance, especially as there's residents fairly nearby. Having a look on Google Maps, we can see that there's residents directly above and to the side of this residential premises. So noise breakout, whether it's from music or actual people attending, could cause nearby residents a disturbance. So that is a concern for us. Environmental Protection did ask for evidence of a noise management plan, layout plan, dispersal policy, and a COVID-19 risk assessment, to which we have not actually received any documentation. So in this instance, the Environmental Protection objection still stands, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wonder if at this stage any members of the panel have any questions to put to the responsible authorities. Councillor Conway?
Thank you, Chair. I suppose this is a question for both Neil and Gertsch, actually, and that is that we know that people are allowed to have parties. And, you know, you could decide to have a house party anyway. And I mean, surely you'd have those same concerns about anybody having a party, but they wouldn't need to ask, you know, to apply for any sort of license in order to have a party. So, I mean, how do your concerns, are they heightened to any extent because they're applying for a temporary license? Are they? I'm just trying to see the distinction between the two.
I think the problem lies in, by granting the temporary event notice, you're legitimising the events that go on there without having any control, because obviously the questions that we've asked, most people would engage with us to put some sort of management in or plan some sort of management structure that would prevent or reduce the risk occurring. So by the council licensing something, you are effectively legitimising it without the actual responsibility that goes with it, with the premises user. So you're quite right with regards to the fact that if they just wanted to carry on as a private party, there would be nothing to stop them. If there was noise complaints, then that would be dealt with in afterwards, or police would end up getting called out and asking them to turn it down. But by issuing the license, you're basically endorsing whatever events are happening. And normally with a temporary event notice, we will determine the risk given the history of the operator, etc., etc. We have no history here. I mean, yet we've been asked to legitimise an unknown because we've not been engaged by the premises user or any of our questions answered.
And sorry, can I just have a follow-up? Had they engaged with you and said that they had plans for what they were going to do to ensure that they didn't cause a nuisance and that they had a dispersal arrangement or whatever, would that have changed because I know that this is novel for us, but I suppose it's making me think that we might encounter more of these. It might be useful for us to think about what our position is. Is this like a blanket, you know, because it's in a residential area, or is it a case of unless you can show us that you're definitely going to be able to control these concerns that we have, it's not going to happen?
Yeah, I mean that's part of it. It would have depended on what they've said, but obviously they've said nothing, so we can't judge them on that. But secondly, I'm a bit surprised, as I started off, as to why somebody would want to retail alcohol at their birthday party, because everybody either has free drink or people bring a bottle. You're there to celebrate somebody's birthday party, not to run an enterprise, because that's what it's been sold to us as. It's a birthday party, but yet they want to sell alcohol to their guests. I mean, we would need some answers around that.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, there are a couple of thoughts that occur to me. One is that we've already said that this is a very unusual situation, and therefore we're almost certainly dealing with somebody who's not used to making this kind of application, and perhaps they haven't understood as much as we might expect normally with a licensing situation, that it is a good idea to engage both with the police and environmental protection on the kinds of concerns that there are. So perhaps there might be a little bit of leeway there. And perhaps when we hear what the premises user has to say, then they may have some things to say which might assuage some of your concerns. With regard to the profit motive, I think let's just wait and see and ask the premises user about that. Councillor Fajana Thomas, you wanted to say something as well.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to pick on what the officer said around retailing alcohol. And again, might be when the premises user maybe directly to them. Why the question is, why would somebody sell alcohol at a birthday party? Have they looked into the options of, if this person want to have a birthday party, they really want to bring people together but cannot afford it? Was there the option of bring your own bottle? We've all done it, going to a party, having your own bottle and chilling out with families and friends. That would be a useful conversation that I would like to have. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. So at this point then, I think we should probably hear from the premises user, who is, I believe, Ingrid Pilgrim, who's with us at the moment. So Ingrid, are you able to come online and address some of these issues?
Yes, I'm happy to address some of these issues. I must say thank you for having me here. I've never applied for a license before. I've never used your service before. I work for the NHS, and I have my birthday during the middle of COVID. I was 50, and now we're still in COVID, and I thought I want to have this event for my friends so we could have a really good time. And after discussing with my friends and family, financially, I can't afford to buy the drink. So I said, okay, I just want to use the money that I have and sell the drink so I could retrieve my money back. So, and that was the only reason, not to make a profit. It was no intention of making profit. In fact, filling the form out was even more tedious than sitting. It was just a very stressful process. Maybe that's why a lot of people in the community don't use the service, because it's very antiquated. For me,
Okay.
the guidelines that is set out by the police and the environmental are really new to me, and I wasn't really able to understand if they want me to address it in this meeting or they want me to send it back to them via email. I know the officer said he didn't get any confirmation or response back. I wasn't sure how it was said, because what I get was just in a written report, and they just said reply back within certain dates. So I am not sure of the policy.
Ingrid, I wonder if I could ask you a favour. There's quite a lot of background noise, which I think is coming from you. I'm not sure if it's because of where you are, perhaps you're in a public place, or if it's because the television is on or something like that. But if you were able to minimize that, that would be quite helpful for everybody who's listening to you. Sorry, Ingrid, do switch your mic back on so that we can hear you again.
I tried to mute the sound. Is that better now?
No, it's similar. Don't worry, we'll press on. I just thought it might be helpful if it was something that was in your control. Don't worry, just carry on.
Don't tell them you're trying to sell alcohol.
So for me, it will open the gateway for a lot more community youth member to be more confident in using the service, because maybe people really want to apply to the service but find it very antiquated. And only 2 people have applied to the service in the last 5 years. 2 members of the community have applied.
Ingrid, you're going out of line. You address what's concerning you.
I think there's somebody behind you, Ingrid, that we can hear. We're hearing everything that person is saying as well. Could I just suggest that since I think you've seen the questions that the police have raised, and I think it might be useful if you could try and address some answers to some of those questions, if you could.
Yes.
If it's helpful.
Do you want me to address?
Well,
individually.
I think it would be useful. I mean, we can go through them if you want, but the sorts of questions that the police were raising were things like, what kind of risk assessment have you conducted? Whether or not this is going to be an advertised event or not? What alcohol you're intending to be selling? And how you intend to make sure that you don't get any gate crashes? Those sorts of questions.
Yes, so the police started off by saying that
Chair, Amanda's hand is up. I think you want to raise something.
Having a party.
Chair, I was just going to suggest that if you could refer her to the document that sets out these questions, because I think she needs to be able to follow what we're saying, what we're getting.
Make a profit.
Because the communication is quite difficult.
I want to reassure.
Ingrid, I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. I think you, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you might be on a phone. Is that right? Are you on a telephone? Yeah, I think we've got a problem with Ingrid's connectivity. She may be on a phone, which is partly why I didn't refer to the documents, because I wondered whether or not she may not be able to actually see them very easily. But hopefully she can rejoin the meeting shortly. She'll recognize that she's been cut off and she'll come back in. It's quite difficult to understand what she's actually saying even at the moment, isn't it? So it's quite hard to understand where we go from here. If she doesn't rejoin within the next minute or so.
Chair, I think you need to give her at least 5 minutes to rejoin, and 1 minute might be too short.
Well, I was going to suggest that we might adjourn this case and start the next one.
Yes, that would be a good idea.
Yes, Chair, I'm going to advise it maybe as well for the time being to adjourn item 5.1 and move on to item 5.3.
Could either Clifford or Suba email the last premises user just to let her know that she needs to rejoin the meeting, and we'll wait for her.
If Suba could do that, that would be very helpful.
Sorry, Chair, I wondered if it might also be quite useful to suggest that she could dial in as well, because I think sometimes you know, trying to join the video call is even with your camera off is a bit more difficult.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So Suba, if you wouldn't mind emailing to that effect, or even if you have her phone number, perhaps even giving her a call to talk her through that. Shall we move on to the second case meantime?
Yes.
Oh, actually, in order to do that, we need, oh, I think she may be coming back now. See what happens.
Hello, Ingrid. Are you able to speak to the committee?
Yes, it's *6 in order to unmute if you're on a telephone. I think.
Hello, Ingrid. I don't know if you can hear us or not. If you, oh, she's gone again.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say was, let's press on to the second item, but Suba would need to introduce that, and she's she's currently on the phone. I don't know if you're able to do that, Clifford, are you?
It should be the licensing officer that actually.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. It should be the licensing officer. Was in yeah, we can't do any other questions.
Let's just wait until Suba's finished her phone call then.
Yeah.
And then,
Yes, let's just wait a few more moments.
Sorry, Chair. I spoke with Ingrid. I think she's having issues with connection, but I've told her how to unmute using a phone. So she's going to dial back in.
okay, so do you suggest that we wait just for another moment just to let her dial back in and try that first?
Yes.
Before moving on to the next. Yeah.
Yes, let's give it another minute and a half, Chair.
Okay.
Clifford, whilst we're waiting, how many minutes has Ingrid had already for her representation?
Well, it's hard to say really because she was.
Okay.
Probably had about 2.5 minutes.
Okay, so she's still got time. Okay.
Yes, so she still has time. Yes.
I think, you know, it's a bit trying on everybody's patience, isn't it? But I do think we have to try and make allowances as much as we can for the fact that we're remote and people's connectivity is different, and you know, indeed any of us could lose our signal at any time. So
Yes, Chair. We have to endeavour to try as hard as we can to have participation, full participation.
hello, Ingrid. Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Well, previously we were just saying I don't know if you've been able to see or if you can look now at the documents.
Stay online with them. You can read the questions there. Okay.
At the documents that are relevant to this at the moment.
Yeah.
But if you can, on page 11, you will see the comments that the police have made, and there are a number of questions there which they set out, which it would be useful if you were able to address for us, please.
Okay. The first question was, how would you ensure that the event applies to the licensing requirement?
That's right.
Yeah. So for me, I understand the license requirement, and in order to meet the license requirement, my aim is to ensure that all my guests are vetted and will be inside my premises and not outside, so to disturb the community at large. I will play my music at a moderate level. I also will ensure that any children who are there will be supervised by their parents, so there's no harm to children. And I invited all the people in my community to the party, and also notify them about the event.
So you're saying that only people who you've invited will be coming to this. It's not being more widely advertised.
No, it's not.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say as a sort of formal submission before we move on to asking a few questions?
I would really like the police and the environmental people to say to me, maybe would it be okay for us to come and carry out their own risk assessment, or can we do a joint risk assessment together? And that would be really good community spirit, or maybe that's what I would really like from the community liaison or the community environmental group, not just hiding behind papers and say, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do that, but need to be more proactive.
Okay. I think we have to deal with the situation that we have here at the moment, which is that this is a temporary event notice, which has to be decided today. So we're not going to be able to get into a situation of people making inspections and what have you. I think at this point, it does behoove you to answer some of the questions that they raised about things like noise and dispersal, and how you're taking account of so I wonder, sorry, there's a lot of background noise going on there, which makes it quite hard to hear.
I'm not listening.
Are you able to move somewhere a little bit quieter?
I'm sitting in the garden, and we're still having background noise. There's nothing else I can do.
Okay. Well, there are a few issues I think that we probably need to address, and perhaps the first one I'm going to steal Councillor Thomas's question, really, which is about why you're choosing to sell alcohol rather than to invite friends along for a birthday party to bring a bottle, which it seems to me might resolve some of the problems that you've got here with this licensing application.
My aim was to sell alcohol was because at least if I'm selling alcohol, I could manage or control what is coming into the property. And also, I know what my friends would want to have on the night, and it's not going to be a big, large group of people, maybe 30, 40 people the most. So that's the reason why most people are coming from work, they wouldn't be picking up the drink on the way or whatever. So that was the aim behind the party. Looking to profit wasn't in my thought at all.
Okay, so partly what you're saying then is that if you sell the alcohol, you can control whether people are drinking, you know, beer or wine or rum or whatever it might be that they want to, that you want to sell, and that they won't be bringing their own stuff in.
Well, I'm just gonna be having just beers. There would be no spirit, really.
Okay. Could I just ask a couple of questions before I open up to questions from other people? I wonder, first of all, whether or not you've had much of a conversation with your neighbours about this, because clearly the party's going to go on until at least 11 o'clock, which is when you say you won't be selling alcohol after then. Have you talked to your neighbours about how they feel about the noise, and also about what time people are actually going to be going home?
Yes, I have a discussion with my neighbours and the people on the block of my flat and across the road, and nobody had any problem with it, because within the last 2-3 weeks, I have the neighbor at number 11 at the party. There was not a problem. I had a neighbor at number 2 at the party. It was not a problem. So we are a close community, and it wasn't a problem when I discussed it with the neighbors who I discussed it with.
Okay. I have one final question before I open it up to others for questions, which is just that whilst you say you're not advertising and it is only a party which is open to people you're inviting, parties do sometimes have a habit of getting onto social media, and people can sometimes turn up, particularly perhaps if they think that they can buy alcohol there. Is that something you've thought about at all, and what would you do to try to avoid that risk?
Well, I have party before in my house and no one turned up that wasn't invited. The only difference is now I'm selling alcohol. So I don't expect no one to turn up or not invited. However, if people come who are not invited, I will tell them it's a private party and they're not invited.
Okay.
Because my front door will be closed, my garden gate will be closed, and they would need someone to let them inside. They can't just walk in.
Good. All right. Thank you. I wonder if there are other members of the committee who've got questions that they'd like to put to Ingrid. Councillor Fajana Thomas.
Hi, Ingrid. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, I could hear you.
Thanks very much. Just a couple of follow-up questions. You, like the officer, looked at that address. It is in a block of flats, and there is another block of flat adjacent to that. And in terms of having a party, you've put in your application you were expecting about 40 guests. So are you saying those 40 guests will be within your premises without being outside of the premises? That is my first question. And the second question, you have put that this party will go on from 12 until 11. That is about 11 hours. People that are coming, your guests, are you expecting the same set of guests from that 12 noon until 11? Or would this be a party that people will be coming, some set of people will be coming in and some set will be going? That is my second question. And the last question again is about noise. You mentioned that 2 of your neighbors had parties in the last couple of weeks. Do you mind, were these neighbors, were they selling alcohol at that party? And was the party within their premises, or outside onto the pavement, onto the communal or area of your block? Thank you.
Okay, for the first question, my aim for keeping the party between 11 and 12 is so that people could stagger the time they come, so I don't have everyone inside at the same time. So younger people with younger kids and all of that, they will come in the daytime, where I'm going to have a bouncy castle and all of that. And then they will go earlier. And then afterwards, I will have more older and more mature people coming. So that's the reason why I'm having it from that time to stagger the event. Yeah. For your next question, my neighbor had a party and the people was in the garden. I know they wasn't selling alcohol. And for the third question, the noise that I am having in my party is from a little stereo, and I'm playing Amazon Prime. I'm not playing a sound system. So I want the party to play music and have a conversation at the same time. So it will be manageable, where the music is not too loud for a dance or kind of environment. It's a party environment. You have a chat with friends while listening to music. That is the aim for I am having the party beyond. So it's not music where it would be beyond a sound that you can't hear someone speak. No, I'm not doing that. So.
Sorry, you say you're having, it's okay, the other question, but you say you're having a bouncing castle. Is that, did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. And that the bouncing castle will be in your garden. Is that?
And the bouncy castle will be collected at 6 o'clock, yes.
So, but that will be in the garden.
Yes, it will be in the garden.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions for Ingrid? No. In that case, perhaps I can invite both the if I could invite the responsible authorities and Ingrid to sum up, please. Responsible authorities first, I think.
Yeah. I think from what we've heard, we've got the Licensing Act obviously exists for a reason, and you have
Sorry, I'll just ask Ingrid to switch off her mic for a moment. Ingrid, would you mind switching your mic off, please, while we just hear the summing up from the responsible authorities, and then you can sum up yourself afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't think she put it on mute.
I'm trying to find mute, that's the problem.
Mario, can you please mute Ingrid?
Thank you.
The Licensing Act exists for a reason, and obviously you've got the licensing objectives are in that act. If you apply for a license, you have to abide by the licensing objective, and obviously you have to know what the licensing objectives are in order to apply them. We've got no problem with people having private parties. Ingrid is entitled to have a 50th birthday party, same as everybody else's. But obviously, once you apply to license it, even on a temporary event notice, then you have to apply by the various rules and regulations. I really do believe that the best way forward for Ingrid, given that obviously it has to be determined now, we've not been given any of the answers to, dispersal, noise, all the rest of it, that she either pulls money from her guests to purchase the alcohol so it's not retailed, or alternatively they bring a bottle. That way her party can go ahead as planned. Obviously, if she's saying that she can't afford it, she's got an outlay to obviously buy that stock in. don't know whether she's going to sell it all, or she might not have enough. One way or another, it ends in disaster. So there are alternatives so this party can go ahead. We do not believe that licensing it and therefore giving the council stamp of approval is the way forward, because if anything goes wrong, then obviously you've legitimised it, and then we have to pick the pieces out of that. So that's where we're at with that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I wonder if Environmental Protection has anything to add to that.
Thank you, Chair. I think Neil's actually hit the nail on the head with everything that he said in summary. In terms of, but I will pick on public nuisance. Again, we can't, we're talking about a residential home here where you can't, there's more than likely there's insufficient soundproofing within the home, and there's likely to be some form of disturbance to nearby residents. And just based on that alone, we believe that a counter notice should be issued alongside everything else that the police has already picked up on. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ingrid, is there anything else that you'd like to add to that oh, sorry, Amanda's just raised her hand. Amanda?
Yes, I just wanted to ask, would you be able to ask Ingrid, Chair, about whether or not, therefore, from what she's said, is she heard from PC Hunwick, is she prepared to withdraw her 10? Is that what, I suspect that's what you're proposing, Count PC Hunwick, is that right? That she proposes her 10 and has the party as you've suggested, or?
I think that would be the simplest way forward, because it takes it out of the licensing realm. Then obviously the councillors don't then have to make a determination. She can still have a party, but there are other ways and means of facilitating that party, as I've suggested.
Yes, so I think you need to make that clear, or whether or not we are still proceeding to make a decision, and therefore take into consideration what Gertrude has said as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. So Ingrid, if you could put your mic back on again, please. And as the police and Amanda have just pointed out, there has been a suggestion of a different way forward put forward, which is either that your guests pool their cash and together you collectively buy some alcohol, or you ask people to bring a bottle and withdraw from this temporary event notice application. Is that something that you're minded to do? Is it *6 or #6 to unmute on a mobile phone? I can't remember.
It's *6.
*6. So Ingrid, if you're listening, if you could press *6, you should be able to hear us again. And actually, did Mario, did you mute Ingrid, or? I'm not sure if we're.
Hello, Councillor. Yes, I'm muted, Ingrid. However, I'm unable to unmute, I'm afraid.
Okay. So we're waiting for Ingrid to come back to us, are we? But sadly, we can't tell whether or not she can hear us.
Chair, might I suggest if Suba could contact
I think she's not going to be able to. I don't think she's going to be able to call her, because I think her phone's going to be occupied, isn't it?
Chair, do you
I think she'll be able
repeat?
to identify that a call's coming in, though. She should be able to see the calls coming in, so she might, because otherwise you could be waiting a long time.
I think Suba's actually gone to do that now.
She's gone to do that now. Okay. Sorry, everybody.
She's going to dial back in.
Okay.
Thank you, Suba.
Hello, Ingrid. We can see you joined us again, but you're muted still at the moment. If you could try pressing *6. Aha!
They don't hear you.
Good.
So I'm unmuted now.
You are unmuted. We can hear you again now.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard what I said just before you left us. But basically, PC Hunswick has come up with a couple of ways forward that you might like to think about. One would involve pooling money with guests who are coming to the party to buy some alcohol. The other would involve asking them to bring a bottle along with them instead of selling alcohol. And that would involve, if you went down either of those routes, you could then withdraw from the temporary event notice process.
So what you're saying that I could still go ahead with the party, and if I withdraw the temporary license notice, however, I don't get the point, because if you reject the temporary license notice, I could still have the party.
You can't have the party and sell alcohol if the notice is rejected. As far as I'm aware, and Amanda will correct me if I'm wrong, you could still have the party.
If the counter notice is issued, which means that it would mean she cannot have the party. So you cannot sell alcohol. Basically, you can only agree with your friends to purchase the alcohol.
Yeah, but Amanda, I think what I'm trying to clarify is that she couldn't have a party selling alcohol, but she could have a party where people brought a bottle.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's correct. So
yes, you could have your party, but not with not selling alcohol, Ingrid. If the application was rejected. Are you still there?
Yeah, I have no problem with that at all.
So, so essentially, are you saying you want us to continue? Because we're kind of at the end of hearing the evidence on this case now. What we will do is we'll discuss it at the end after we've heard the other two cases that we've got to hear, and we'll make a decision and come back to you tomorrow with an answer. Is that the way that you'd like us to go?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Chair.
Yes, Amanda.
Yeah, I think though that if she's going for the option that we're suggesting, that she gets her friends to bring a bottle, effectively she doesn't need the temporary event notice, and she should withdraw the 10.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't be making any decision on that tonight.
No, we would.
She needs to decide now if she's going to withdraw the 10 or not, and whether or not she's going to not. She needs to confirm that she's not going to be selling alcohol, and that she will deal with it by another means.
If she decides to withdraw the 10.
Yes. But
yes, that's fine.
Can I just, I'm sorry, I just need to be absolutely clear with Amanda about this. It's within Ingrid's rights, if she wants to proceed with the 10 and to get an answer from us, which may be to decide that she should not be able to sell alcohol at the event. If that is the answer that she gets, she could still proceed to have the party without selling alcohol. Is that correct?
She could still proceed to have the party without selling alcohol.
Yes, so she could have a party where she can get people to bring a bottle or whatever. So in other words, I mean, the point that you're making is that if it's likely that we're going to turn this down, she may as well withdraw it now. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I mean, if you're likely to.
But we can't really make that decision formally at this point, because we can't really go into the proper conversation about the whole thing. So it's a bit tricky, isn't it?
The decision of are you saying that that you're likely to allow the event to go ahead?
I can't say, because there are two other panel members here and we haven't discussed it. So I can't say what's likely to happen at the moment. We need to have that discussion to make the decision.
It's just if the counter notice is issued, she would need to. Suba, we will let you speak in a minute. If the counter notice is issued, she would have to comply in accordance with the licensing regime. That's the concern, you see. So I don't want her to be tied up with something if that's not what her, the intention will be.
I think the point that you're making, Amanda, is that Ingrid, with the best will in the world, it seems that you're probably not familiar enough with the licensing objectives, which you would need to be adhering to if you were to get a TENS license to sell alcohol. Yeah. And on those grounds, it's unlikely that you're going to get the TENS license. So you can save yourself and indeed the council officers a certain amount of trouble if you just decide, okay, we'll withdraw the license and I'll proceed with the party on the basis of bring a bottle or some other non-sales way of having your party. Do you understand? Are you with me?
Yes, I am with you. For me, the selling of alcohol wasn't the important part. Having the party was the important part. So if once I could have my party and I will ask friends and family to bring a drink, then I will go ahead and having the party. I thought I need to apply for a license if I'm going to provide the alcohol to retrieve back my money. And that wasn't the most important part. For me, having my party is more important. So I don't mind once I have my party, that's all I need to do, really.
So can I suggest then that we reach an agreement that you're going to withdraw the TENS application this evening and that you will proceed to press ahead with plans for your party, which won't involve selling alcohol, but you'll discuss with your friends what's the best way to furnish the party with some booze.
Yes, thank you.
Good. All right. I think we're agreed.
Could you just double check if Suba had anything she wanted to say? So, because she did have a hand up.
Suba, yes, Suba, what did you want to say?
No, Chair, I just want to clarify, like, even if the members decided to issue a counter notice, the premises user can go ahead with the party without selling alcohol, and still she can ask them to bring in their own. So it's up to the members to decide, but it's not necessary that she has to withdraw her TEN.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But as things stand, Ingrid, you've withdrawn the TENS application, and happy belated 50th birthday to you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. And you can leave the meeting now and not worry about it again.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, thanks everybody for your patience with that and the various connectivity problems. Let's move on to our next case, which is regarding Simon's Bar in Old Street. I wonder if Suba could introduce that for us, please.
Thank you, Chair. Temporary notice was given to the licensing service in respect of the Simon's Bar, 2338 Old Street, for an event to be held from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. on 28th of August and 29th of August, and from midnight to 3 a.m. on the 30th of August. We have received objection from the police. There's no other additional information. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. At this point then, if we can return back, please, to PC Neil Hunwick, who I think is going to outline his views on this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As a result of full reopening on the 24th of July, venues have returned to their full capacity. We've seen a return to vertical drinking, which does have an effect on people's behaviour. generally venues are noisier, etc., more boisterous. As a result of possibly the last 15 months of various different stages of lockdown, many people have seen what a quiet or potentially quieter area Shoreditch has become. The white noise of constant, noise, violence, alcohol, etc., that was perhaps to a certain degree tolerated because it had become the norm. People have become aware that there is a different way forward. Since full reopening has occurred, Shoreditch in particular, and by Shoreditch I mean Old Street, Curtin Road, Rivington Street, Great Eastern Street, and Shoreditch High Street, has seen a return to the bad old days of alcohol-fueled violence. I have to say that in all my years of policing, I even personally don't feel safe walking in the areas concerned. There's large numbers of people congregate outside venues when they kick out late at night. There's people doing balloons. They're congregating in groups. There's no dispersal. Everybody's hanging around in the streets. As a result of this, we've decided as a police licensing unit and the police in general that we would not allow or try to resist any extension in hours to any venues that are sitting on those roads in an event, so that we don't see any further increase in the violence. As a result of this temporary event notice has been issued. We do not blame this venue itself. It's a cumulative effect of many, many different venues. We've seen quite a few temporary event notices withdrawn as a result of our objections. So we're not bringing too many before you. We've tried to negotiate with premises, etc., and explain to them this very point, that this is what we're trying to do. Our objective is a reduction or prevention in crime and disorder, which obviously, as you're aware, is one of the 4 licensing objectives. Even the venues themselves have started coming to us saying that it's not nice operating with people congregating outside, etc. So basically, as we understand that as a result of the pandemic, businesses have been considered have experienced considerable financial turmoil, etc. However, our one main concern is law and prevention of crime and disorder. And as a result, we have objected to this 10, and we bring it before you for your consideration. In some respects, it is a test of councillors' opinion towards the 10s in that particular area, as we've got quite a few that are holding pending a judgment on this one as to what goes on further. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I wonder if Environmental Protection have anything to add to that at all for this particular application?
Sorry, Chair, there's no reps from Environmental Protection for this notice.
No. Okay, I thought so. All right, in that case, if we could, do any of the committee have any clarifications or any questions at the moment to put to PC Hunwick? No. In which case, perhaps we can move on to ask for a response from Mr. Campbell, who I think is here representing the bar.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Thanks for your time, guys. I completely understand what you're saying, Neil, and I do, respect the police's stance on crime in Shoreditch and the local area. It's obviously a very busy nightlife area, especially the Shoreditch Triangle. I do want to point out that we're not in the middle of the Shoreditch Triangle. We're not in the busiest part of the area. And I would like to clarify that you obviously mentioned a number of instances of crime. Those are not, as far as I'm aware, related to our venue or anywhere close. Is that correct? Can you clarify?
I think, go ahead.
I wasn't going to bring like crime mapping and all the rest of into this. This is a generalisation. I think everybody that is aware of what Shoreditch is like. Historically, venues pre-COVID were all on events like bank holidays, etc. Everybody put extensions of hours in. We managed that. Some venues we had to speak to regarding the length of extensions they wanted, etc. We've taken the opinion on this occasion that we are objecting to all extensions within that area. The crime occurs right throughout that area. I appreciate what the applicant is saying with regards to the further away, but they're still on busy old street. It's surrounded by fast food venues afterwards, all of which causes people to congregate in groups and to not disperse. And obviously we can't then, if we start supporting applications from one venue within the area or the specified area, then all the other applications go, well, you've given it to them, why are you not giving it to us? So we've taken that blanket approach that in that area that's what we're going to do.
Understood. Yeah, just for me as an operator, it seems if that is the case, then temporary event notices are kind of pointless. And we did actually try and engage with you a number of times on this to try and see if there was a middle ground that we could get to where you would be happy. It's mainly for the Sunday that we're looking for some sort of extension. We understand that, on the Friday and Saturday, the 2 till 3 a.m. may be a bit of a stretch, but our licensable hours on Sunday are only midnight. So we did, I just wanted to add that we did try and engage on a number of occasions and didn't hear anything back, myself and Kelsey. And during the first case, you did say that engagement would have helped, but yeah, we did try. I think we didn't actually include in the application, which we should have done, the inclusion of our security staff that we would have on shift normally, and we would have on shift up until the end of our licensable hours, whatever they end up being. So on a bank holiday Sunday, we do have 4 members of registered SA security staff on shift. And we also have a dispersal policy in place, and we have obviously the rest of our license conditions that we do abide by at all times. We did also run temporary event notices up until 3 a.m. About a month ago, had no issues or objections from the police, and ran them without any problems. And I just feel that, sort of applying a blanket policy to an entire area is, it's not particularly fair or particularly reasonable.
PC Hunwick, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, well, I mean, with regards to blanket policies, I mean, it is in the spa area, so blanket policies do occur. Temporary event notices were never intended when the Licensing Act was drawn up for people to extend their hours. Although that's a loophole that people have used them for, that's not what they're for. They're for the likes of fates and things like that, where people don't have a permanent license. So obviously the hospitality industry has used them to extend their licenses, and Nick is quite right in saying that we did allow temporary, or we did agree to temporary event notices, but that was prior to the final stage of lockdown, when everybody was seated and capacities were lower. I do appreciate that he might feel hard done by that, but at the end of the day, these premises license is given with those hours because those hours are deemed to be suitable for that premises. The fact that obviously people have historically been able to extend those hours by temporary event notices, that's history. I mean, we're on about moving forward and protecting the public now, and unfortunately, that's one of the few weapons we've got left in our arsenal. Yeah.
Thank you. Nick, did you want to add anything to that, to what you've said, or to what Neil's just said?
No, I mean, it feels a bit strong saying it's a weapon in your arsenal. We're not fighting against you, and we're not, it's not the police versus hospitality or us. We're here to work with you.
No, I think what PC Hunwick meant was that it's a weapon in their arsenal in trying to keep peace and to keep law and order on the streets. Not
Chair's hit the nail on the head. This is not aimed at you and Arsenal against you. This is against the crime that alcohol brings, whether it's been sold by you or somebody else. This is what we're trying to do, is protect the public. So that's our only interest.
Okay. I think if it's all right, Mr. Campbell, I'd like to move on to open up a sort of discussion phase on this, if I may. It's sort of happening naturally to some extent anyway. I suppose I've got a couple of issues, really. It does seem to me that since you are operating in this special area anyway, the emphasis is really on you to show that there's nothing in this which is going to add to the cumulative impact of the antisocial behaviour in Shoreditch. And I don't think there's anything that you said particularly that really addresses that issue. Yes, you've said that you will have your normal security people on, and of course we'd expect that, and your licensing conditions would anticipate that anyway. But actually, you know, the fact that that people are drinking for an extra hour is almost inevitably likely to add to the cumulative impact of more drunken behaviour as people leave. So I don't quite see how you can be asking for this and not see that there isn't going to be an addition to the cumulative impact of antisocial behaviour in the area. Have you got anything to say to that?
Sure, yeah, I'd just like to clarify on our license, Sunday night and bank holiday doesn't have a requirement for any security staff. So for us, in an attempt to mitigate any problems or antisocial behaviour or cumulative impact, we have added 4 security staff, which means that's a ratio of 1 per 50. Well, sorry, about 1 per 40 of our license capacity, which is a very high ratio. We do. So that is probably one of the biggest things that we are putting in place to mitigate any issues. We have our normal dispersal policy, and the extra hour for me adds an extra period of time where people can disperse. It's not that we're letting everyone leave altogether at 2 a.m. in the morning, which does happen. 2 a.m. on a bank holiday Sunday is probably considered a reasonable closing hour, but it's definitely not late. So by the end of the night, we are assuming we would be having a full venue, and if you let them all disperse at 2 a.m. at one go, you're likely to get a much larger cumulative impact than you would than adding an extra hour and having those people that would leave naturally at 2 a.m. leave, and the few that would stay later leaving at a later period.
Thank you very much for pointing that out. That's a good observation. Perhaps one thing I should just point out to you at this point is that you've talked about being particularly interested in the Sunday change
Yes.
because you have to. Unfortunately, we can't vary the application in any way at this hearing this evening at all.
Right.
So we can't say, okay, if you withdraw what you're looking for on Friday and Saturday, we'll consider something different on the Sunday. That's not within the powers of this panel to be able to do that, I'm afraid. We have to look at the whole package. So perhaps it's a shame that you weren't able to engage with the police earlier on for whatever reason, because you might perhaps have modified the TENS application.
Well, exactly. That's why we tried to engage. We sent a number of emails and tried to call and got nothing in response. So that's
okay.
Not on us.
Councillor Fajana Thomas wanted to add something.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I do appreciate, Nick, that you've got a business to run. But as the officer, as Neil mentioned before, temporary event notices are actually not meant for licensee. Of course, the legislation is silent about it, and licensee are using temporary event as a loophole, but it was meant to be for a church faith, a community hall gathering, and all of that. Having said that as background, I think one thing that is important, you were saying earlier that you're not within the triangle. That is even one of the issues for me as an individual, because when you are not even within that triangle, it means you are actually close to where residents are. And there is the need to balance that in Shoreditch, while we supporting the hospitality businesses as a local authority there, we still have residents that live in that area. And what happens when people come out of this venue, not saying that people would be disorderly within your venue, they end up on the street, disorderly, half of the time intoxicated, and bring that impact our residents who at 3 a.m., 2 a.m. might be sleeping, people who are vulnerable with young people. And it is important for us as a licensing authority, when we are looking at anything licensed, to look at that balance. And as the chair mentioned, I don't see the justification in having another hour. All what that would do is probably get more people to have more alcohol and end up being on the street. And it is a difficult one, in particular the Sunday one. And again, Sobaina and Amanda, I'm not too sure. Nick mentioned something about not in their license, they're not required to have SIA on Sundays. I'm not too sure why that is, or if that is relating to if it's about blank, if it's about policy or the license in particular. It would be good if you can please say something about that. And Nick, you've not, I would like to hear from you that this is what is going to happen Sunday night if we're extending our hours until 3 a.m. And I've not heard that from you.
Sorry, do you want me to answer, or Neil, do you want to speak?
Perhaps we'll just hear from Neil first, and then perhaps you could respond to both.
Yeah, of course, yeah, it's fine.
Just a couple of quick points. With regards to the engagement following the objections, my colleague Sian did receive an email from Kelsey, I think was the name on the original 10, and she did email him back explaining what the police stance was and as to why we were going down the policy of joint or a blanket objection. So there was some engagement, but obviously if we're coming from one stage and they're coming from completely the other, then there's only so much ground you can discuss. With regards to the licence, the councillor's obviously pointed out about Sunday. What we remember is each licence is bespoke and is written at the time that the licence is granted. No two licences, well, you'd be very hard pushed to find two licences that are the same. Simmons recently purchased the venue from what used to be the craft beer company. So they've inherited whatever the conditions were on that licence from whenever that licence was granted. I think Simmons have been in occupation there for probably about 4 months. So the license they've got is basically what they've purchased. And that's the explanation as to why perhaps there was no stipulation at SIA there on a Sunday, because if that license was issued 20 years ago when it was a very, very different landscape, then the requirements would be the same. And obviously we can't review, or none of the responsible authorities can review a license until we've got some grave concern. And it's only at that stage that some alterations can be made to the license.
Okay, thank you very much. So I hear what you're saying. I mean, it sounds to me like you're like all of us are quite surprised that there's no requirement for an SIA on a Sunday. So that might be something to think about for the future.
Sorry, can I just make a point on that?
Sure.
Just remark. I mean, it's very, and I'm sure Neil, whether he would like to or not, it will agree that it's very unusual that a premises license, unless it's for a nightclub, has stipulations that security are required specifically on Sunday nights. It's a rare instance. For bank holidays, when hours are extended, there are sometimes conditions that relate to security staff being required, but a standard license having security provisions on a Sunday night or any other night, generally apart from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, is not the norm, definitely.
I'm not sure if that's the case in Shoreditch. I think different areas have different issues, and I think more recently in Shoreditch that might be not quite the norm. But it's a discussion that we don't really need to get into at this point. I don't think. One thing I would say to PC Hunwick is that it does seem to me that there is a bit of a problem if the police don't engage with licensees who are seeking to make tens, simply because you're blanketly opposing everything. Because what it does mean is that the licensees aren't able to refine their tens application to something which might perhaps be something which we might consider to be acceptable. This does seem to me a bit of a problem in this case, because we might have been discussing an extra hour on a Sunday night instead of going till 3 a.m. on a Sunday, which is, you know, unlikely to be something that we're going to end up approving, I suspect. So it's just a question to the police, really, about, I can see that once the policy has been decided to take that blanket approach, you might think that there's no point in engaging, but actually perhaps there is some point in engaging, because it allows licensees to think harder about what they're asking for and make the case in advance, perhaps in their own heads. That's just an observation on my part.
No, Chair, I agree. And normally, under normal circumstances, that would be the case. But this is a policy decision that's been made at sort of Chief Inspector Superintendent level because of the problems we've experienced in Shoreditch. So it's a bit above my pay grade. I'm some degree the messenger, and it is in some respects a trial to see if we can make a dent in the violent crime. We never say never.
That's not fair enough, but it's just you might want to just speed it back up the food chain a bit. That that engaging is not necessarily the best way.
Unfortunately, Chair, we're used to dealing with yourselves. We're used to the Licensing Act. We know how it works. Unfortunately, people way above us don't necessarily, but unfortunately, being a discipline service, this is this is what's been determined. I'm not saying I don't disagree with it, because at the end of the day, we do have a massive, as you're aware, problem with violent crime, antisocial behaviour, all the rest of it in Shoreditch, and we're getting to the stage where we're going to have to try anything we can to try and reduce it.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Chair.
I think. Do any other members of the panel have any comments to make? Any other comments to make? I haven't got any further questions or anything. So if I could perhaps ask PC Hunwick and Mr. Campbell if you'd mind summing up for us, starting with you, Neil.
Yeah, Chair. It is. I don't intend to go into too deeply again. You've all heard what I said. The Shoreditch is a unique problem. It's Europe's busiest nighttime economy. There's some very late licensing in there. There is a massive problem with alcohol and the violence that it fuels. This is something that we're attempting to deal with by means of bringing people back to the hours that were given when their licenses were issued. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick, have you got anything to add?
Not really. I don't have anything further to add, but I do want to echo your point about the police's engagement or lack of it. It doesn't really set a great precedence. You know, we're sitting there as a licensee trying to speak to the authorities that are, you know, meant to be working with us. And I think going forward, it should just be standard practice. If a venue wants to engage, you should engage back, because we would be having a different discussion right now. It wouldn't be talking about 3 a.m. because I do fully understand where you're coming from, Neil, and I do understand the perspective of the police in general. You know, I'm not sitting here as an ignorant operator who just thinks we can do whatever we want. And, you know, I'm a sensible licensee, you know, so that I think is important going forward.
I don't say I've been on leave. I'm quite happy to speak to you moving forward, but
yeah, I'm not having a go at you
personally. So we'll talk at a later stage.
Yeah, it would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you very much. In that case, I think we can say thank you very much, Mr. Campbell, for joining us, and we'll be in touch tomorrow with a decision on the way forward.
No problem.
Thank you. Which brings us to the final case this evening, which is the, I can't read my own writing here. Perhaps I better refer back to it's in Wick Road, isn't it? I'm just trying to get the name of the premise right.
Chair, you've got both Clifford and Amanda hands up.
Okay.
For procedure.
Chair, would you like to just have a 5 5-minute comfort break.
That is a good
At this
idea, isn't
point,
it?
I think it may be advisable
It's a
to
very good idea.
5 minutes.
Amanda, what did you want to say?
All I wanted to say is not to forget to formally explain that the item one, the second item was dealt with by delegated authority. Just you need to just state that for the record.
Do I need to say that for the record? Okay, sorry.
Yes. So the item number 10, Arch 376, 10 Helmsblue Place, was dealt with by delegated authority.
Delegated authority. Okay,
yes.
Good.
And then that then just leaves one on a final matter. Thank you.
Okay, so shall we all take 5 minutes? Is that a good idea? Yeah. It's now 2027. If we could be back here, let's say at 2032, that would be good.
Thank you, Chair.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy to. I mean, I would have preferred to have discussed this with you in person. I mean, I sold a deal with a tens. My colleague Sian, she was acting under the directive, and so probably didn't realise there was maybe a bit more room to discuss stuff. It would have probably been better if we could have sat down and discussed where we're coming from the police's point of view, and see if there was any way we could have accommodated anything. But as I've said before, the problem is with somebody in that area getting something, then everybody wants something. But that's a discussion that we should have between ourselves. With regards to this particular 10, as the chair will point out, it's for you to decide. The council, they've heard the evidence, and it's for them to decide on whether or not they would grant the 10. If you want to save them some time, then obviously withdrawing it is something that would do that, and then we can discuss.
I'll just add into that really that obviously we'd welcome it if you do withdraw it, Nick, because it saves quite a lot of work. I just need to check with Amanda when she's back that we're able to do that, since officially I've sort of drawn the discussion to a close, but I don't think there's going to be a problem with that.
Yeah, that's understood. Yeah. Like Neil, just to clarify quickly, like, you know, I'm sure that the decision will probably fall on the side of rejection, but if in the instance it wasn't, that would obviously go against a lot of what you're trying to achieve, which is not what we would want to do. So I'm happy to withdraw if that is okay, Penny. You can choose.
Good. Amanda, did you? I don't know if you.
Yeah, I've heard everything. Yes, it is for the premises user. It's at their discretion if they want to withdraw their application.
Good.
Equally,
in that case, we will gratefully accept your withdrawal. Thank you very much, Nick.
Oh, sorry, Super wants to make a comment. Sorry.
Super.
Sorry, Chair. Can we make the withdrawal confirm in writing? So if they could send us an email to confirm it, that would be
yeah, of course, that's fine. Yeah, and then like Neil, at some point, I would really appreciate if we can maybe sit down.
No, we've got no problem. I mean, you've got my email address. Our job mobile is on there. I'm not obviously. I work different shifts. I'm out and all the rest of it. We will touch base in the very near future.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I'll send an email if I have everyone's email address. I'll send it to the email addresses that I have about the withdrawal. I think it was Cliff and possibly someone else, but yeah, cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Neil, if I could just, I don't want to labour this point too much with you because I know it's not your responsibility really, but I suppose I just want to point out the business about if the police feel that it's a blanket decision and therefore they don't need to engage with licensees, there is a problem with that because what it does is sort of it ties the licensee's hand behind their back in making an application which we as the licensing committee might consider a reasonable application if they'd been through a process with you. Do you see what I mean? So in a sense,
no, absolutely. And as I say, it was some of this has been a victim of I'm not trying to make an excuse. I've been on annual leave, and so certain things that I would do because I'm used to dealing with the temporary event notices haven't necessarily been done because it's been dealt with by a colleague that's used to dealing with the enforcement side of things. So I'm not. I mean, we are where we are. So I'm not making excuses, but that's where we're at. So there would normally be a process between myself and a licensee. It may well be that we don't come to any sort of agreement, and it may well be that we can't, in the circumstances, agree to it or support any extension, because obviously we are in a unique problem with Shoreditch, where it's all very well to sort of say, right, now it's a special policy area because of the cumulative effects and all the rest of it, but the fact that maybe no new licenses may be granted because of the area it's in, we've still got to work as a police with what we've got. And obviously we're not trying to muck anybody around. We're not trying to crush people's businesses and all the rest of it. It's a unique time because people are coming from hospitality out of COVID and all the various lockdowns. But that can't be used as an excuse for the gloves to go, let's have a free-for-all. And people are getting drunk longer, harder, faster. We've got various different ASB elements that all sit in the Shoreditch triangle area. I mean, it is a fairly defined area, you know, Old Street, Curtain Road, Great Eastern Street, Shoreditch High Street, and that is the problem. The you know, what goes on there attracts these outside people in. So I understand, Chair, what you're saying about a blanket thing, but obviously we're dealing with it from a purely violent crime basis, that people are getting hurt, and it's caused by alcohol. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
I don't really.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't really know.
Let's move on to the last one then,
Yeah,
shall we?
okay.
So, Subra, I wonder if you could introduce the last one for us, please.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Temporary notice was given to the licensing service in respect of Habot Bar and Lounge, 331 Wick Road, for an event to be held on 5th of September from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. We have received objection from the police and environmental protection. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Again, then, we will hear, I think, from PC Hunwick, first of all, as the responsible authority.
I was going to say, give Gertch a go, please. Give me a break. Okay. This is a very difficult location. It's the previous operators caused us no end of issues as well. We were hoping for better things here. Basically, we have had a number, and quite a large number, of complaints to our Safer Neighbourhoods team from local residents complaining about various aspects of the operation. There's been allegations that they have gone over their licensable hours, that there's large gatherings of cars parked on the pavements around the location due to a lack of parking. There's been a great deal of noise and distress caused by people dispersing from the area when it does close. As a result of that, colleagues of mine went to the venue on the 5th of September. Sorry, not on the 5th of September. They went on the 23rd of July. I'm reading the wrong bit. And conducted a full licensing visit. There were a number of breaches that are detailed on our objections documents. I'm not going to read them all out, but they were conditions 13, 23, 27, 41, 42, 45, and 50. As I say, the main problem is the sheer number of ASB related complaints that we've had. I did receive an impact statement from local ward officer. Unfortunately, this came through too late to submit, which would have given a general feeling of the complaints that they've received. However, as a result of this, we do not believe that, given the noise complaints and all the rest of it, which I'm sure Gertch will go into, that an increase in hours from 1 in the morning till 5 in the morning can be supported at any time for this venue. They've shown themselves to obviously some ignorance of the licensing objectives and also the conditions on their license. And as a result of that, we object to the issuing of the TEM.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Petit, do you have anything to add from the environmental protection point of view?
Thank you, Chair. Environmental protection, just like to add that initially the temporary event notice did not state that they were going to have regulated entertainment. It's only when I had a conversation with the premises user that he confirmed that regulated entertainment will be taking place for this temporary event notice. And environmental protection effectively have concerns with the additional regulated entertainment and noise from patrons. This event could amount to a statutory noise nuisance, hence undermining the licensing objective public nuisance. Environmental protection requested some evidence of a noise management plan, layout plan, dispersal policy, and COVID-19 risk assessment. Unfortunately, we haven't received any documentation, and hence why our objection still stands. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, if we could come to, I think it's Mr. Ebenezer Badunde, is that right? Who's speaking on behalf of the premises? Are you still with us? You're muted at the moment. First of all, thank you so much for your patience to stick with us through all of the previous hearings. You've now got 5 minutes or so to make the case on behalf of the premise if you wanted to. You're muted at the moment, though. Sorry. We're still not hearing you, I'm afraid, at the moment. Nope, we've got
Can
no
you
sound. We can hear you now.
Okay,
Gotcha.
hi. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I do receive the email from Mr. Gosh anyway. Then I try to send the email back to them in regards to the thing we've put in place to save the premises on that day. As normal, we normally have a security guard on site every time, but we have planned on that same day, the 5th of September, which we are thinking of having the birthday. We have arranged for like 4 security guards to be on the site. And regards to the noise in the premises, is only when we try to move them out at the end of maybe the event or anything. They normally wait outside to wait for the cab, and all those cabs. There is no parking area there, so they have to stay on the pavement to wait for these people to come out to the car, and is something we're trying to work something out, and we have tried to speak to the lady who wants the birthday party, that we don't want to, due to the COVID restriction now, we're trying to minimize the people that will be coming to the venue, just to make sure that everything is in place. And regards to the noise, I can only say is because when they were waiting for the cab, when they stand outside waiting for the cab, they like talking to, and there's this cab people that they don't come in time when it comes to late in the night. So there is no way we can we try to push them up in order to not to make noise to the other people in the or for the neighbors, but we're trying our best, and that's why we're trying to get more security guards on that day. We've already booked for 4 security guards, so that to make everything in order.
Okay, is there anything else you wanted to add, or can I now take it that we can open up for some discussion and I can ask other panel?
Yeah, that's all for now.
Okay. I wonder if Councillor Conway or Councillor Fajana Thomas have got any questions they'd like to ask.
Yes, Chair. Just a few quick points. As we have in the application or in the police objection, the premises was visited recently, and 7 breach of the license were as part of the, sorry, just looking for the paper, as part of the police visit to the premises. It would be useful. Some of these breaches are as part of someone not actually understanding their obligation around public safety, prevention of public nuisance, prevention of crime and disorder as part of the licensing regime. It would be useful to hear whether any of these breaches, whether they've now rectified that, or whether anything is being done around that. And that is my first question. The second question is around what the premises user just described as people do make noise when they're dispersing them. That is the whole point of having a disperser or policy in place, so that when people are leaving your premises, they're not constituting nuisance to neighbors. And if he's saying they're not able to manage that manage their patrons going out of the venue without making nuisance or to being or a sort of disturbing the neighbors or the residents that live around that place. I think that is a big issue. So I want him to comment on those two questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Bedende, first of all, with regard to the breaches that the police found when they visited in July, what have you done about those things?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, what happened then? I think one at the premises that day when they came, I attended to them. It was this we have some directions on the wall, which are like what is told me that day that we have to put this sign of drink and drive, sort of things like that. And it's not that we don't have them on the wall. We do have them. But, sometimes they fell down. They fell on the floor. So, as soon as they left that day, I tried to look for them and I fixed them back immediately. So that same night, before even they left, as soon as they left, I put them back on the wall. It's not that we don't have them on the wall, but they sometimes fell down. Yeah. So I put them back, and they're up till now. They're all fixed on the wall since then. So they're all been fixed since that day. Same day, that same night, I fixed them that same. And due to the noise on dispatch and stuff, we normally close half an hour before we are before the time we normally close, and we make sure our securities they are 1 hour after the closing time in order to dispatch them safely. We have never had any fight or maybe nuisance people or something. We do normally close 1 hour. We stop the bar selling drink before 1 hour before the closing time, so that we can have these people out before in normal time with no risk of So this is what we have already put in place, and we try to maintain with that. So, but it's just that the only thing is when they are waiting for the cab outside to get their cab. We did normally call cab. Most of them they don't come, they don't drive. They come with a cab, and when they want to leave, they have to wait outside to get their cab. I think that is where the noise might be coming from, but it's not really too much. And myself, I always be outside security guard. I put everything in place. Obviously, I don't want to lose my license and stuff like that, but I try my best. But it's just because of this waiting for the cab outside. That is when the little noise comes from. We never had any of them fighting or stuff like that because we normally close 1 hour before the time. So these are the things we put in place.
Okay, could I just make the observation that one of the breaches involved, I think, insufficient security guards. The door supervisors were not there when they should have been. Is that correct?
They were there. They were there. 2 of them were there. We intend to have 3 that night, but the other one is called sick. When he came, he complained that he's got a headache, and I said, okay, you can go. And even that day, there was no one at the restaurant that day. It was only 3 or 4 people that was there. No one in the whole restaurant on that same day. No one there. I confirmed that I've got it.
I think my other observation would be that since most of the complaints about antisocial behaviour seem to concentrate on noise, and you're describing the fact that your dispersal policy seems to be essentially just about getting people out of the building and not sufficient thought about how they move on from the building. I just wonder if you've consulted much and got any advice from the police or indeed from other licensed premises who have similar issues, because you're not alone with that problem, on how you might be able to deal with it better. because at the moment it seems that you're not dealing with it perhaps as well as you might. And that means that when we're looking at a TENS application which is asking for an event which is going to go on until 5 o'clock in the morning, that is a serious concern for us, I think. Have you got any comments on that?
Yeah, this is why I said instead of having 2 security or 3, we have put in place 4 SIA badge security guys on that same day, which I think when we are having 4 instead of 2 or 3, that should be helpful. And we have made sure that instead of having
I suppose my question would be, how will you use them differently to ensure that they're able to disperse the guests, the visitors, the clients without making noise in a way which is different? Because you do have your SIA people there normally, and you've still got a problem with noise. So what are you going to do differently just from having a couple of extra people on duty?
Yeah, this is why I said, first of all, instead of having 2 or 3, we've increased it to 4. And at the same time, we're not going to have much people. I've told the celebrant already that they're requesting for about 50 people in the premises. And I've told them, because of the noise and the dispatching people at the end of the party, we don't want any problem with the neighbors. I've told them already that we can accept up to 50 of them. And even these people, they are not their caliber of matured people. I think the woman is doing her 50th birthday, so they are not like young people that can, create a nuisance or, So I've put in place, okay, we can't have more than up to 35, which I've told them, and they agree with it. So I think that would be easier for us to disperse them on that day.
Okay, thank you. I know that PC Hunwick wants to come back, and so does Councillor Vijana Thomas. I think for me, though, that I just wanted to make one point quickly beforehand, which is also that you haven't applied for a TENS license before, and it's quite a big one that you're applying for. Part of the basis on which we make a judgment on whether or not to grant temporary event notices is on the basis of how you've handled them previously. If you'd made, so it's quite a big ask to ask us to make a temporary event notice which ends at 5 o'clock in the morning for somebody who's never had a temporary event notice before. I just want you to bear that in mind, I suppose, really, that to some extent we have to go on the track record of how licensees have dealt with temporary event notices, and to issue one that finishes at 5 o'clock in the morning as a first is quite a big step. Perhaps PC Hunwick would say something, and then I'll come to Councillor Vijana Thomas.
Yeah, Chair, sorry, I mean, I'm just looking through the paperwork here. I'm just looking at the nature of the complaints that we've received, and I think these have also gone to the council as well. They are all mostly around about dispersal and people that are not being sent away from the premises. Obviously, I haven't submitted these in time to actually go through the details, unless anybody wanted to listen to them. However, the council does refer here in the email change that the council actually issued a formal warning letter to the venue on the 7th of July at the beginning of the month, following evidence of licence breaches which were found on a visit by council licensing officers on the 3rd of July of this year. So despite the fact they were already put on notice that they were on watch for failures of their breaches, when we then went there at the end of the month, they still had breaches or further breaches that were evident. And indeed, notices that had somehow become detached from the wall had to be searched for, when obviously they would be laying on the floor, and I'm surprised they would have been noticed lying there. So that was just the point, the one point that I wanted to make before we summarise.
Thank you. Councillor Vijana Thomas?
Thanks, Chair. Just 2 quick questions. The first one is you just mentioned that you will the numbers of guests or numbers of patrons that you're expecting will be around 35 or 50. But in your application, you've put 80 there, numbers of people, expected numbers of people. And my second question is, this tells you this you are asking for will actually start at 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. Will you still have your normal opening hours until 11 p.m. that day as well? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. As I said, I've told you I have to go back to the celebrant to let her know that we can have up to that. As I said, we have now reached a conclusion that, okay, if you still want to do it, we want to reduce the guests from 35 to 40. We can't accept more than that in order to make peace in the premises on that day. And the second question, we normally going to have the restaurant open till 12. Is at 12 on 1 a.m. on Saturday, not 11. We normally close at 1 a.m. So we're still going to be available. The normal customer will still be available by then, till then.
PC Hanwick?
I'm just going to follow on from what the councillors kind of asked, which is, what time is this party actually starting? Because although the restaurant might be open to normal other customers until 1 a.m., I find it very difficult to believe that their party is then going to start at 1 o'clock. So just to get a feel for just how long this party is going on for, what time is it starting?
Okay, the party is meant to start at between 10 and 11. So we're still going to have the normal restaurant open till then. And as you know, it's not that a lot of people, they don't present at the premises, but by the time they schedule a party or something, so they might end up start coming by maybe between 11 and 12.
They're going to start their birthday party at 12 o'clock at night, and you're going to kick everybody else out of your restaurant so that you can facilitate that.
No, I said they meant to start at 10 p.m. but I know they're not going to turn up until maybe like 11, 12.
Yeah, so I mean, in licensing terms, I don't think it makes any difference, does it, particularly, and since the restaurant's licensed until midnight anyway.
No, Chair, I'll just get a feel for how long these people are going to be drinking for, and then going to be expected at 5 a.m. to disperse in a reasonable manner. When they can't disperse at 1 a.m., then at 5 a.m. is probably going to be even drunker and even noisier.
No, they close.
Although I don't think it's unusual for some parties to start very late as well. I think it is possible.
Yeah,
I asked the question.
we just put it so that we'll be able to dispatch. That's what we're putting in up to that time. They can't stay at the party till 5 a.m. It's not possible. They finish at 3 o'clock. Then before we can dispatch them, that's what we're looking at that time. But if you can give us up to that time, maybe at least 3 o'clock, yeah, that's fine.
Well, one thing I should point out, Mr. Badunde, is that one thing we can't do in this hearing is to adjust the application at all. So I'm afraid it's just a straight yes or no to the application. It's not like a normal licensing hearing where we might try to reach some sort of accommodation. That's not possible in this kind of hearing, I'm afraid. So it will just be a yes or a no.
Okay. All right, that's fine anyway, but we just need to put into consideration that you mentioned something, if I could remember, that we haven't got an history, maybe when we have extended our license before. We just recently opened the restaurant, and we have to start from, obviously, if we don't start now, if we don't have, that means we're not going to have any history of previous, the temporary license. So it's something you just need to
It's just my suggestion was really just that to start with a temporary event notice which goes until 5 a.m. when you've already got some problems around noise is perhaps not the most effective way to get your first license. And if you want to build up a track record of running those TENS notices effectively, you might have to start off with something a little bit more conservative.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay, I think we've probably heard from everybody. I think we can probably sum up now, and any closing remarks from PC Hunwick, first of all.
Yep, Chair. We find ourselves with a venue that is creating a very large number of complaints from local residents about dispersal, noise, etc., which by the applicants or the premises user's own admission, he does struggle with. Allowing that dispersal to be at 5 a.m. rather than 1 a.m. I think will just exacerbate everybody's loss of sleep and the number of complaints. Also, people will have been drinking and be even more intoxicated than normal, which will again increase the amount of noise, etc. And on that basis, we still object to the application.
Okay, Mr. Budunde, have you any closing remarks?
Yes, please. We normally have, as they said anyway, it's no, I don't think there is a noise that is used to be a dispatch noise in the premises. I can say that, but if the resident complain about that, I've never seen that as a problem. We never struggle to put them out. As I said, I never said that we're struggling to dispatch them. What I said is, we're trying to make we're trying to check if we can have, we've already booked for 4 security guards to assist us in order not to have any complaint. If they said, because they've never complained to us, we only have the letter from the council that this is what they said. Okay, that is why we're trying to, even it has not even happened recently, that was before. So I don't know. I've never had any letter from the council recently that they're complaining or something. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Can I just ask Amanda something for clarification, please? Really, which is just if this temporary event notice is turned down, does that impact in any way any kind of temporary event notice that the applicant might make in the future?
No, because each one is considered on its own application, its own circumstances. So
okay.
yes, so it's in the future. I mean, obviously, the premises user is always advised to consult with the police and licensing authority in advance if they can, or once they've made their application, so that they can try and resolve any matters if possible. But once it comes to hearing, it shouldn't. No, it doesn't impact. No.
It doesn't impact. Okay. So I suppose the reason I'm asking the question is that we've heard 2 applications this evening which have been withdrawn. I just wondered if Mr. Budunde would have anything to gain from withdrawing the application if he were coming to make future applications, but it sounds as though it would make no difference actually.
It wouldn't make any difference. The only concern is that I mean, it shouldn't impact it, but the police will refer to the fact that there was that this application was refused, or that a counter notice was issued. So it will go build up a history. Basically, it'll be part of their history of the premises.
And if he were to withdraw it, that wouldn't be.
If he withdrew it, no, then there wouldn't be anything, and it would be for him. Then he would have to, yeah. If he withdraws it, then there's no record, and they would then start afresh going forward.
Mr. Budunde, I don't know if you've heard that.
Yeah, I had that. Yeah. Just go for it.
Sorry.
I don't want to. I want to get it.
Sorry, can you repeat it, please?
I said, I want a decision on this.
He wants a decision, so he wants us to make a decision still.
You do want a decision rather than, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, PC Hunwicks wants to say something.
Only that Gertch obviously is also a responsible authority, so he needs to summarise as well. Don't
Oh,
forget my
thank
good
you.
friend. Don't forget my good friend from Gertch. He's waited a long time.
I do apologise. Would you like to summarise as well?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Neil. I obviously, environmental protection still has concerns that public nuisance is likely to public nuisance objectives likely to be undermined here. I'd just like the panel to finally consider the precedent that they'll be setting here by allowing this event potentially to go up until 5 o'clock in the morning, when there are complaints from nearby residents. The police has witnessed numerous license condition breaches. I mean, what precedent are we trying to set going forward here by allowing by rewarding a business to extend its hours when there are clear breaches of license conditions and the possibility of the licensing objectives being undermined? That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Budunde, do you have anything to say in response to that? I'm just since
I've explained to the issue of the license breach. It's not that we don't have those things they request for at the premises, but the only thing is sometimes they've all fell down. They fell down on the floor, and my staff they might just end up picking up and put it somewhere. As soon as they left that day, I saw everything on the and I put it back straight.
Sorry, I'm not asking for a sort of a recap of what you've already told us. I was looking for a sort of more general summary of whether you've got anything to say to the suggestion that it's a bad precedent that we would be setting.
Yeah, but as I said, there's no any other complaints since then when they came, and then I've tried to make sure it is in place since then. So
okay, can I just make it very clear that you've understood that if you proceed with the application and we find against it, that it will go on the record that the temporary event notice has been turned down, whereas if you were to withdraw it, that would not be part of the record. You've understood that, have you?
And that, yeah.
And you still want to proceed, yeah?
Yes, please, yeah.
Okay. In that case, I think we'll draw proceedings to a close and say thank you very much for attending, Mr. Budunde and Mr. Hundwick, Mr. Patty, and we will have a response to you tomorrow. Amanda has something to add before we finish.
Sorry to backtrack. I just have one last question for the premises user through the chair. Did the premises user receive any notification from the council about complaints? The complaints?
I do receive.
When did you receive them?
That will, back date, but I think it was on June, and I respond back to the email.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. And I think, as I say, we'll get back to you tomorrow with our decision on this final case.
All right, then. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody else.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.